Granite Falls Historical Society Part 1.
This is Mike for A Person of High Strangeness. We're here in the town of Granite Falls. We're going to be looking at the Granite Falls Museum, and we'll take you through and see what we can see in the way of things that involve the town and its founding, and we'll talk about those things as we go along. This is Fred, and Fred's going to take us around the Granite Falls Museum and explain some of the things that we have here. Fred?
Thanks. In February of 2005, the museum building consisted only of that small house you see, about 900 square feet. And everything we owned was either in there or in storage, in various people's garages, houses, backs of stores, etc. We decided in February of 2005 that we were going to build a new building. So we sent letters out to everyone we knew saying, if you gave us $100 or more to help build a new building, and we're not working on it next year, you get your money back. So it was not a long-term capital campaign. It was, we can either do this in a year or we can't do it. In October of 2007, which was essentially a little over 2 years later, we opened the doors to this building, and this is what it looked like. This is done purely on contributions. There are thousands of hours of volunteer labor, as you can imagine, and everything's paid for. It's ours. You know, when we decided to do it, we also had to make some decisions about what it was we were going to put on display. So we had a vote among our membership about what kind of things do you like to see us put on display. And we took a vote among all the members. We prioritized things. We laid out floor space. We designed the building ourselves, essentially, on a floor plan based on how much property we had to put the building on. We decided we'd have two wings. We'd have a high center section for obvious reasons when we get in there. And at that point, we went to an architect to get him to handle the structural details of how the building could be laid out, etc. We built all the displays ourselves. We've had no professional help in terms of how to build displays or print signs or put up signs.
Well, the displays are well put together, Fred. I'm amazed. Can you start with the hardware since
Sure.
1890?
This is sort of a timeline. If you go through in this front room here, we put up a number of storefronts. In 1890, a fellow who was the mayor of Marysville actually opened the first store in Granite Falls, 1 block from where we are, right in the corner there, where 4 homesteads came to an intersection, and the homesteaders agreed to donate ground to create this town. His name was Mark Swinnerton. He came in 1890, and it was sort of an all-purpose store. But one of the big steps was when we got our own doctor. And Dr. Chappell showed up in 1893. He opened not only a medical practice, but a drugstore and the first hardware store.
Fred, let's walk over here so he can shoot.
We put in here, a hardware store in the early days was where you bought everything. You bought pails, you bought pots, pans, you bought a washing machine, you could buy a gun, and anything in between. Some of the unique items in here are, you see this hand crank operation contraption there. It has a walking beam with a blade on the end of it, and a tray that goes around. That's the vegetable and meat cutter. Early food processor, if you will.
Oh my goodness.
That radio there with the fancy looking speaker was one of the first radios in Granite Falls that did not require a battery to operate. Even some of the AC powered radios in the early days needed an extra battery to help operate the tubes. That did not. So we have an old shotgun up there. We have a record that actually killed a bear inside the city limits in Granite Falls at one point in time. A beautiful copper washing machine, and that started life, believe it or not, as an electric washing machine. It was a very early electric washer that actually came equipped with a motor.
Oh my goodness.
This is sort of to represent Dr. Chappell's practice. He was a founding father of the town. He not only served as part of the city government, but he was the town's first and only doctor for a long time. He acted as a vet in many cases. He opened a hardware store, a drugstore. He was a well-known farmer. Later on, he was partners in a shingle mill, and he was a published poet, among other things.
I'll be darned, he was a poet, wasn't he?
Yep.
And this says the cottage
physician.
physician.
It has any number of diagrams, as is that book about internal organs. We got a very, very nice donation. You notice some of the glassware here is just spectacular. One of the second and third generation owners in the Snohomish drugstore actually came to the museum once and noticed that we had a number of bottles on display that had been preserved. But he and his dad had Snohomish drug for many decades. He had retired. He said, I have some of that glass put away. I would love to bring it up here and put it on display. So a lot of the bottles are exactly the same, from one drugstore to the next. Those we happen to have gotten from Snohomish. That's Dr. Chappell's sheepskin on the wall.
I'll be darned.
1881, says Franciscan Chapel, or Frank Chapel, from the University of Michigan.
All right. Scale, we need those.
Yeah. No, I'm off the scale now.
Millinery.
Well, the people that first owned the small house, I said, that we have next door as part of our museum,
Yes.
she was the town's first milliner. And she was the great aunt of one of our members who appears as a very young boy on a Climax locomotive in one of the pictures in here. But she was a milliner. This is one of her original hats, still had a price tag on it.
Oh, Lilian will love this.
So we have a number of items in here that are fascinating to look at, including this art that's framed here, which is made completely from the hair of those three individuals who were pictured. Hair art was quite a pastime around the turn of the 20th century. That was all done by a gentleman who was a good friend of the lady at the top of those three, who was a caretaker for one of our schools here called the Outlook School, which is now our Grange Hall.
Oh my goodness. I've never heard of hair art. Isn't that wonderful?
It's quite a hobby.
That's
and you can
different.
see the intricate work that went into it.
Oh yes, you can. A lot.
Now, one of the common things in pictures of any town in the Northwest is when you see a barber pole, there typically is a sign somewhere, and more often than not it says it right on the window. That's where you went to get your bath. So this was just, that actually is a picture of the inside of the first Granite Falls barber shop. It was just on the one store away from the main intersection in town. And you can see if you were an old wooden barber pole, you led sort of a tough life when you were around a bunch of guys that were carrying axes and hatchets with them at all points in time.
Well, when the doctor wasn't around, didn't they serve as a...
They served as the dentist.
Dentist?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, some of the colors on the barber pole are a reflection of some of that practice. The red being representative of some of the blood that was led.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let's move on.
We sort of skipped by these two cabinets in the middle.
Okay.
But the first cabinet here is the one that has all of the artifacts in the museum that are older than the members. These are all Indian artifacts that were found in the local area. There was no Indian community in Granite Falls, in immediate Granite Falls. This was not a great place to live, but it was a great place to fish hunt and commute. We happen to be on the closest point between the Still-Squamish River and the Pilchuck River. So this area was first known as Portage because this is where the Indians took their canoes from one river to the other.
All right. Now, down in Indian Summer, past the cemetery going down Engelbritsen Road. Now, that's called Indian Summer down there, and a lot of times people have told me about seeing Indians.
Tremendous number of artifacts down there.
Is there?
They dug up a bunch this winter. As they started building the bypass, they went in and they did a lot of digging and came up with a tremendous number of Indian artifacts. But still, they were transient Indians. There were camps here, and they hunted and fished here, but we had no permanent settlements, per se.
Oh, okay. Let's move on.
Home entertainment was a big deal. Here we have home entertainment through the years. The violin or fiddle up here in the case belonged to John Snethen, who was a very important major citizen in the early days. Built not the first hotel in town, but the biggest hotel, which still stands as the building on the four-corner main intersection in the center of town. That was his fiddle.
No, I remember this. I remember, what was it, the old Dalmatian dog that used to look down inside it?
Absolutely. Yep. The old RCA Victor dog.
The RCA Victor, yeah.
In fact, we had a display for a while. We actually happen to have a huge replica of RCA dog with a poster and back of it. That's an Edison cylinder player. It works fine. This is a hand crank organ, and it operates on a paper tape, almost like a Play-Doh channel. It makes tremendous sound. Little slide projector. It has a unique slide here. If you look at that slide, when it's put in the projector, there's a little crank on the side of it.
Yeah.
That's actually a kaleidoscope slide. So when you're projecting patterns in the wall, you would crank the slide and it would make a lighted kaleidoscope.
Isn't that interesting?
And then any number of earlier radios. A lot of kids in today's generation have never seen a vacuum tube. They say, ooh, what are those strange things in the
Oh
vacuum
boy, I used to take ours apart. I used to have it apart and play with the tubes, and my dad would say, what are you doing? Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
One of the unique capabilities we have at this museum is that we can print at a very large scale. So we do a lot of map work. And we actually have the ability to overlay directly any map from 1890, 1910, 1920, 27, 34, 52, 75, put original homestead lines on top of them, and modern area photographs in any order you want. So we do quite often, people come in, they're very interested, they know where they live, and they say, who lived here before me? We can actually show them year by year who lived there, how schools and railroads came and went in that area, who homesteaded it originally, and many times they leave with a large format print of their house, their property with the original homestead lines on it, or modern property lines.
Oh, that's interesting. This shows the road depot.
Well, you met Bill Davison when he was here earlier. He was our building chairman for this building project. That's one of his ancestors. That's one of the Davison women out in the road. His grandfather was an original homesteader, and Bill still has the 40 acres of the original 160-acre homestead out in the road. Oh. That was taken right on the railroad tracks. You can see in the picture out in front of the road depot.
Right down here, yes. We can't get everything, but we'll try to get most.
Now, some of this is just interesting in the sense of what's happened over the years in transportation. When you go out of Granite Falls and past the falls, you cross the bridge.
Yes.
That's the bridge being built. That's it. That's today's bridge. There it is, completed, brand new. And you notice something. It was funded in February, and they had the grand opening parade across it 5 months later. And that is a substantial structure.
Yes, it is. I filmed underneath, coming down, looking down at the falls for a person of high strangeness, for Lilian's visit with a person of high strangeness for her TV show. I filmed up here looking down, but I can see during the winter they're talking about the logs coming through and crashing down and coming through.
Yeah, tremendous damage is often done.
And then down here on the side they have the fish ladder.
Yeah, but it's a commentary on the productivity and the ambition of men when they can create something like that, from funding to finished in 5 months. These are actually the original blueprints of that bridge.
Oh, so
they fit on 6 pieces of paper.
And you put it all together.
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful?
Well, you know, this was the breakthrough. This was built 1 year before they picked up all the railroad rails that went out across the river out into the wilderness here. If they hadn't built this bridge, we would have had no way of bringing timber in from the other side of the river. So it would have been an economic disaster. You can't quite read it here, but you'll notice that it says load limit 7 tons on that bridge. Well, 7 tons sounds like a lot until as we go in the next room, you'll see we have a spar tree set up. That piece of wood weighed 7 tons, and it was a toothpick compared to these logs that were coming in from the other side of the river.
Oh my goodness. And what have we here?
That is the printer that we use to do all the printing around here.
Okay.
Notice that picture on the wall there?
Right there.
Color picture? That was taken a year ago in the spring. That's a picture of the Granite Falls Electric Company Dam, which is still located just south of town. Most people don't even know it's there. The original powerhouse is about an equal distance in back of the photographer in this case. I took that picture just over a year ago. There's John Bachmeyer in the lower right at the controls of the Granite Falls Electric Company. You see the big knife switch in the middle?
Yes.
Granite Falls on, off. pretty simple approach.
let's move on. We got this and just...
Played an important part of the history of the community. You know, the Granite Falls sprang to life when the railroad came through for the mines, but the rails on the railroad carried far more tourists and wood than it ever carried gold. So we have this set up just as an example of the different type of locomotives that we used in the local area. They were all geared locomotives, so they could handle very steep grades and sharp turns. You have a Climax locomotive, here's a Shea locomotive, here's a Heisler locomotive, and there's a Climax B up here. They were all geared, slow speed, high torque, sharp turns, steep grades. They would lay rails into the woods, they'd log an area off, pick the rails up, and move them somewhere else. A lot of work and a lot of engineering, but you know, that was the only way they could haul big wood out of the woods.
Oh, wow, okay.
We are fortunate that a gentleman named C.R. Bachmeyer, who at one point was our postmaster, you'll see him in a number of pictures around here, he had a compulsion to take pictures, save them, and write on the back exactly when they were taken and who it was and where it was. So we have 300 or 400 pictures we really started our collection with that were already identified, which it makes all the difference in the world, because having the identities on those allowed us to identify a lot of pictures in places that we didn't know, other pictures we had, but we didn't know where they were taken. So as we get into the main hall here, the intent was to bring industry to life. You know, this corner is dedicated to the life of the blacksmith. These are all Granite Falls blacksmith tools. About half of them have initials on them from Oscar Wickland, who operated the blacksmith shop here for decades. Handmade tools, purpose-built. A lot of them look similar, but they were all built for a very specific job. And the blacksmith took a lot of pride in the fact that they not only built great products, but they built great tools in order to finish a job.
I imagine so. Look at this. It's so intricate. I can imagine what he had to do to get everything together. You know, you had to heat it up and pound it out.
You had to be talented to make the tool before
you could do the work.
Exactly right.
Isn't that interesting?
Now, a lot of things in the early days were belt-driven. You know, you can see this was a belt-driven drill press. Here we have a hit-and-miss engine that we run for demonstrations at times, but on the other side of that pulley set is a pulley on the flywheel so that you can drive things with belts.
Yes. Yes. Okay. And then
in this corner we have our shingle cutting machine. There was a company in Everett, I'm sure you've heard of, called Sumner Manufacturing. They were big names, Sumner. They were a family-owned business that set a reputation for quality and, I'm going to say, good citizenship. I don't know how else to explain it. But they built a tremendous amount of heavy equipment for the railroads, for the timber industry, for the logging industry. So you'll see a lot of pieces of big, heavy, rusty stuff that was built by Sumner. One of their most famous products was the gold medal shingle cutting machine. It was considered to be the Cadillac of shingle cutting machines, but the design, you notice up the top, was Sumner 1918. That's about the time the original design of the machine was completed. And they've never come up with a better design. We still operate machines of exactly this type at Miller Shingle Mill here in Granite Falls, which is the largest specialty mill, is what they call a shingle mill now, in the country.
Oh boy. Now, Fred, this is, what do we call this?
Well, these were tools. Here's one laying here.
Oh yeah.
One of the things you had to do from a practical standpoint is learn how to grade and ungrade cable, because you have to put things on the end and splice it together.
Yes.
And these tools were used to get between the strands in the cable and pry them apart. There was nothing subtle about what you had to do.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And
these are
those
cutting gaps.
Simon spurs.
Yeah.
They were given to us by a retired teacher who brought them back to Granite Falls. They actually belonged to a well-known gentleman in Granite Falls who lost them on a wager to this fellow as a young man. He said, "You're not worth your salt, and I will prevent you from graduating from high school if you're not man enough to put my spurs on and climb a spar tree and touched the pass block at the top. And that young man put them on, climbed up, came back and kept the spurs.
What a story.
And he kept them until he retired, and he brought them back to Granite Falls to give to us.
Oh, that's wonderful. So this is a logger's memorial.
Yes. We had a lot of folks that lost their lives, or friends that lost their lives, and we encouraged people to come by and put an entry in our book to people that went through a tremendous amount of work to civilize this part of the country, and in the course of events lost their lives. This is actually we consider this to be the top 25 feet of a spar tree. And a spar tree was used for what they call high lead logging. You know, the biggest challenge was not to go in the woods and cut down a tree. It was to cut down a couple of trees, and then a couple of more, and then a couple of more, and then you had all the stumps in your way. So you couldn't drag the logs out between the old stumps. They went to this type of logging so that they could take a donkey engine, and we call it a steam donkey. They would put these blocks as high as possible on the best fir in the area. This would be 150, 175 feet high. They'd run a cable up and out to the log that they're going to drag in. And because the lead was so high up, it would pick the front end of the log off the ground and allow it to skip over all the stumps that were in the way. So they would drag as many logs as they could into one pile called cold deck, and then ship them all out from there. That was where they built the railroad spur too.
Oh boy.
Now you know there was a noticeable change in technology over the years. When they first did this, they had a small donkey engine, and they had cable, and they had a nut who went up there and ultimately got all these things fastened to the tree, and it would drag a log in. But in all the early pictures, you would see a team of horses standing around. And what do you want the horses for if you got the donkey engine to pull the log in? Somebody had to pull the cable back out.
Oh yes.
So then they went to another rig where they put a second pulley up there, a haul ladder, and they simply ran a lighter cable all the way out past to where they were dragging logs from, back to the end of the main cable. So they would use the main cable to haul the log in, and then they'd turn the other drum with the engine and pull the cable back out. So they could pull the end of the main cable both in and out.
And then over here we have like a teletype.
Well, I'll show you one thing here before we look at that. This is a picture of this machine in operation. Now, on the video here,
Yes.
this shows the operation of this shingle cutting machine. Now, the way it works, when a log comes into a shingle mill, when it would come in those days, they had a big cut-off blade like this on an arm, and it would simply come down and cut the log into fixed length, like the 24-inch length. So you knew that it was square on the ends.
Yes.
And that big disc would flop on its side. They'd have somebody with a pneumatic-powered splitter that would split it like firewood. And we'd end up with shingle bolts that look something like this, where they're nice and square on each end, but the edges are kind of rough, however it decides to split.
Yes.
Well, the sawyer's job, this machine simply has an eccentric on the big pulley back there that causes this carriage to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth at constant speed. His job is to occasionally stop it. He's got a clutch. He steps on this to open these jaws, and he puts a new shingle bolt in. He releases it, and it starts going back and forth again. Well, each time it goes back and forth, there are teeth on a roller here and up here. And as it hits on one of these two inclined planes here, it hits this, and that rolls the bottom roller. The next time it hits on the top, it rolls the top roller. So that shingle bolt comes walking this way a little bit each time and passes by that big 4-foot blade with no guard on it right there.
Oh my goodness.
And that's what gives the shingle a taper. So at that point, you know you have a tapered shingle with square ends, but sides that are, not so hot. His job is to take his left hand, pick the shingles coming off the blade here up, put them on this table against this square,
Yes.
trim that edge straight, flip it over, and then trim the edge straight. Look at the grain in the shingle and sort it by grade. Go down one of 3 or 4 different chutes that he would throw them down to a packer who would be down packing shingles downstairs. So this shows it in motion. We actually have a section here that plays in slow motion, because unless you see it in slow motion, you can't believe some of the things that are going on that you'd otherwise miss. So this is, here's an 80-plus-year-old machine working. I'd like to refilm this someday because the Sawyer there is wearing a headset, for ear protection.
Right.
But if he would operate one bolt for me with just ear plugs in, I could film it, just show it in black and white, and you'd never know that it wasn't 1920.
That's right.
If you look at him, he's got sort of longish hair and a handlebar mustache and a plaid shirt with suspenders. He looks like a classic Sawyer.
Oh yeah, he does.
He's picking the pieces off with his left hand without looking at that blade, and taking, flipping them, trimming the edges. Many times he'll take two at a time. And at some point, it gets to the point where it's just cutting garbage off the shingle bolt. He notices that. He'll disengage the motion with his foot clutch, throw that stuff down a hole in the floor in the back, put in the new shingle bolt, and he's off and running again. Things that get hung up in the blade, no big deal, we just pull them out with a hand. Understand that's a saw blade there and a saw blade here, and he's standing at the intersection of the two with his hands.
Yeah, I used to be a Sawyer. I know what this is like.
Well, we have a slow motion section after this one, because obviously, occasionally they get a bigger bolt. And depending on how he puts it in there, he'll start sawing some really wide shingles. And out on the job, a really wide shingle is a pain in the neck. They're hard to fit. They'll warp, and there's lots of reasons. Plus, if they're too wide, they won't even fit in a standard pack. So these guys will do what they call cut fits. And here it is, he put in a pretty big shingle bolt. And watch his right elbow. Notice this, the next bolt in line has been pushed down kind of far. It's a roller track. And there's a guy back there feeding them. And you watch his right elbow, comes very close to hitting one. He didn't quite touch it there, I don't think. But I think this next time, see him touch it? He felt it. But he can't afford to move, so he finishes the shingle he's working on, turns around, pushes that back up the track, and gives the guy a look like, don't do that again. And now he's sort of falling behind the machine. Now this is the 3-to-1 slow motion, slow down. And you see the shingles are getting kind of wide because he's getting into the center of that really big bolt that he put in. So he starts taking two at a time, clips the edges, reaches across the open blade, made two good shingles there while he flips the other two to cut the other edges and picks two more up with his other hand. And he continued at this pace, never stopped the machine, caught up with the machine, and finished out the shingle bolt. He clips the first edge, reaches across, makes two good shingles, flips the other two while he picks up a couple more with his left hand.
And cuts them.
And cuts them.
What a job.
Now, you can imagine in real speed, this is slow motion. In real speed, it's happening so fast, it's hard to believe you're seeing what you're seeing. Now, the other sawyers I saw that ran into this situation would simply stop the machine, open the jaws, and twist the shingle bolt a little bit, so it'd start cutting smaller shingles again.
Oh, boy. The elbow is what bothers me. Ed, explain to me again what this is, if you would please.
It's what's called a velocipede. It's an early form of a railroad hand car, except in this particular case, most people picture a hand car as something you stand up and you pump up and down. In this, you're seated here, and you pump with your hands and your feet. You can carry baggage or a passenger in the back. We actually have a couple of photographs from a family up in the road, where the gentleman's in front, his wife's in back, and their daughter's on the outrigger with a suitcase. They're bringing her into, she can go to school. So anything went. The railroad train itself only came once a day, and the tracks were there 24 hours a day. So there were any number of modified vehicles made to run on the rails. One of the pictures here, right, to you about the end of the line and, what had happened.
So, Mike, I understand you had a really nice visit with that gentleman, huh?
Yes, ma'am. His name was Fred Krueger, and he says, I'm not that Fred Krueger.
Okay, so I don't have to tell you about it. Don't have to ask you that, yeah. We saw a lot of both of you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so what we did, because occasionally you would all get in the way with what he was trying to show you. We're going to show it in some pictures.
That sounds wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And you had to come how many miles to do this? Here? Come here?
Oh, about 85.
Mm-hmm. So next time we film, you'll say, let me get out of the way, I don't want to go.
Would you please move over just a little bit?
Or else I have to go to Olympia, yeah.
Yeah.
He was very accommodating, wasn't he?
Oh, he's very intelligent.
Accommodating.
Yeah, and very accommodating. He was historical minded. He was historical minded, and he knew exactly verbatim where everything was.
Mm-hmm. So now we're going to test your memory because we're going to do some pictures, huh?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Real good.
The music you're hearing is from Mr. T. Brame. And Mike, there you are. We wanted to show one more time what you look like. Loud.
Yes, and right here we've entered the museum, and we're signing the book. It's a book that lets the museum people know that who's come through, and they can send memorabilia out and information, and it's very nice.
Okay. Guess we did that backwards, Mike. At least you went back out and sat down and took a breather before you started.
That's right.
Or did you?
Yes.
Well, then we're right on target with the whole thing.
We're doing good.
I want to ask you about your date on your pictures here. So what's the deal on that, Mike?
Well, the date on the picture is not correct. We haven't adjusted it on the original camera that I have. We thought that it would adjust itself, but it doesn't, so we need to take care of it. And we have a manual that explains it, so we'll do it so it looks accurate.
Just like some people think those shows create themselves, huh?
That's right.
Yeah. I'm looking at some tiles here. Are these tiles? What are these, Mike?
These are people that have donated their money to the creation of the museum. They're individual people and business owners.
So in other words, you can be living to have it there.
That's correct.
Okay. In our family, we bought bricks and things, but they were always in dedication of.
There is more on the inside of the museum on the floor. And people have bought the individual bricks. Those are on the floor in the museum also. Yes.
And then this is?
This is a picture of the log cabin that's out behind the museum. And it's facing to the north.
You're doing that north and south again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is it behind or in front?
It's behind the museum.
Okie dokie. We don't know if this is north or south or east or west. So is that the same cabin, Mike?
Yes, it is. It's the same cabin, and they're doing some refurbishing with rock they've got out there, but they're going to do some work around to make the site look a little bit better.
Would you happen to know where it came from?
No, I do not.
That's
I wish I
okay.
did.
Let's just say it's an old cabinet.
An old log cabin.
Log cabin. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. These are utensils that the blacksmith would make so he could create and do other things with metal work. That took a lot of time and effort.
Not to remind you, this is a two-parter, so there's a good chance you're going to see stuff from next week's show. But I don't know what it is, so I'm going to ask Mike. What is it, Mike?
These are different locomotives that were used to go up to the different mines that were up to the east of Granite Falls. And they would, some of them were for quick turns, some of them were for heavy loads. And in the pictures, when you go to the museum, it has individual names of what these locomotives are.
I know a little bit about this. This is a Moore station. Man, looks like he has all the pieces there.
This Moore station that we were looking at, there are two keys there. There's the kind that you can tap, and then there's the kind that goes back and forth like this. It saves on your fingertips. And Fred was very explanatory in what he was talking about there, and it was very interesting. And as you look at these keys, there's a monitor that comes on and it plays the keys, and digitally it does it for you so you can hear it.
Hey, it looks like I found a gramophone here. Now, Mike, I know you're a perfectionist, but to your best recollection,
Okay.
tell me the story you just told me. And if it's not totally accurate, it's been a while. 2005, what your picture says.
No, but that's inaccurate, and that's my fault. I'm sorry. It should say 2009. The megaphone back in the corner of the picture on the left-hand side, it's like the one for the RCA dog when he looks down into it. And then there's equipment that was there, radio equipment that was you could use a battery on and things like that, and it was different and very informative for the people that were there.
And that bird you hear is my earthquake alerts. I don't know if you saw the news yesterday, but there was a gentleman from Bolivia that hijacked a plane that I was afraid my niece was going to be on, from Cancun, and took it to Mexico City. And you know why he did that?
No.
He wanted to talk to the president because he had a vision that there would be an earthquake.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah. See, all he really needed is a sidekick. He would be forever.
Yes.
But I thought my niece was on that plane, you know. I said, oh, no, she got herself hijacked. Okay. You hear the radio she just talked about, Mike?
Yes. And this is a picture that's a little bit clearer. And you can see the radio is just a little bit better.
Cool. The old I remember those radios from Europe, you know, when I was coming up. Yeah, I'm an old lady. Yeah, don't mind telling how old I am. 62. Mike must have really liked this one. There's another one with his speaker. Yeah, that's a speaker we just talked about now. Do you remember those?
Yes, that's that microphone that we were, you and I were talking about.
No, that's Mike. No, what I'm talking about. In real life, I just told everybody how old I am. So do you remember those?
Yes, I do. I grew up with some of those. My grandfather Coley and grandfather Johns had them in their homes, and I know that some of the other family had heirlooms that were in the attic that were just like these.
And this is a doorbell of some kind, so we can ring your bell.
Yes, Lilian?
Now, the viewers remember you being married.
That's correct.
That's a thing of the past.
That's a thing of the past.
So people can ring your bell?
Yes, they can. They can ring my bell. They can call me if they'd like to.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure it was okay with you.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, you live a long ways from here, but, you know.
In the town of Granite Falls.
Mm-hmm. But you don't mind going for dinner and things like that?
No, I don't. I don't mind talking to people either.
And you don't like bingo, do you?
No, I don't like bingo. I'm sorry.
Okay. So what are your interests?
My interests are paranormal. I like to talk about, there's history I'm very much into. I'm very much into reading, archaeology.
Native American hieroglyphics things?
Hieroglyphic things. When I was in Arizona, I did a lot of hieroglyphic study out there also. But I'm open to, I have an open mind for anything. I like to talk.
Be careful.
Yes.
With the anything, so.
Yeah, because the anything can get you into trouble.
We're gonna go dancing.
Oh, sounds good.
And you have?
No ethnical preference.
Very good. I think we better get back to the museum, huh?
I think we better do that too.
That's a generator wheel, right?
Yes, that's correct. They had a jet of water that used to come out and it would hit the wheel, spin it, and they would create their own electricity.
Mm-hmm. On the picture here, it looks like a stream. Do you know what that is? Is that a river? Right there?
Yes. Yes, it's supposed to be an indication of a river coming down to hit the
wheel.
The wheel.
All right. I had ordered something that's coming with UPS. Of course, the guy drove all over the place. And maybe he was looking for the post office, huh, in ancient times?
I think so.
Because we were looking right at him.
We were looking right at him, and he didn't come to us.
And it was something we wanted to watch.
It's something that you ordered.
Yeah, so we could, watch it.
Yes.
So anyway, maybe he'll see it on TV, and he'll go to Granite Falls Museum.
I hope so.
And he's doing what?
He's working on a shake machine that makes shakes for the top of homes or houses.
What do you mean? To me, a shake is what you get with a hamburger.
Okay, these are wood shakes and...
or like shingles?
Shingles, yes. And there's a machine that cuts them, and then he moves...
Okay, yeah. I'm not sure if this is on this week's show or next week's shows, yeah. But it's not a McDonald's shake, so...
No.
All right. This is the same guy still making a shake. And there was a big story and demonstration about this tree. And I don't recall what he said exactly, but we're going to show this to you in sections. So this is the bottom. And that's the top. Well, I know what it's not. It's not the shake machine. And it's from 1970. Do you remember what it is?
No, I can't remember. But it looks interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's one of the displays at Granite Falls at the museum. Now this I do know, you're going to see that next week, because in part number 2. And we're going to talk about these ladies here. And their dresses and their shoes. I know the story behind this. They had these ladies, they were called the Ground Observer Corps, and they were looking for airplanes from Russia, no? In case of an attack or something. Anyway, it's real interesting. It's in next week's show. These were the uniforms to protect the ladies. World War I. Mike?
Yes. No, it's World War II.
World War II.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. We didn't have problems with the Russians during World War I.
Oh, we did.
You said we had problems then too. Would you know which uniform that is?
Yes, that's a Marine Corps uniform during World War II.
World War II. All right. No matter what era, there was a beautiful car for a beautiful lady. Oops, I'm not sure if this is a minor or more. And then this is a picture of that that train construction. That was beautiful, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Like a really nice train set.
Had two operators that ran it.
Two operators. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one would pull the logs up, and the other one would help get them on top of the trains.
It's a big log. I think we went ahead in time a little bit here. They have really snazzy models. I mean, oops. Yeah, bicycles. And this takes you to the upstairs. Mike, you filmed. It took you one day. You did all this filming in one visit.
That's correct. Fred Kruger is very knowledgeable and very helpful in helping us go through the museum and look at all the different artifacts, and it was quite interesting.
When we filmed the train museum here in Tornado, it was stuff that interested men mostly. Where am I going with this? Is it interesting is it more catered towards males? That's what I want to know. Does it have a male energy?
I would say no, because there's both male and female energy in it. There's a lot of clothing that's in there. There's uniforms that belong to different branches of the service that were specifically to the women. And
we'll see that next week.
We'll see that next week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and was it an expensive outing?
No.
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 Yeah. I understand when you asked him, could you film it, he came right away?
He came right away. He was right there within a half hour. He's very knowledgeable. He is a computer expert for a company that's moved its location to another area, but he is on the payroll for them. He's very knowledgeable, and he also, if you need help finding a different location of different homes that were in the general area, he has a computer that he goes to, and he will bring up that individual lot for that person starting from the 1890s, and he'll help you find that. The museum has places where you can hold a meeting. You just need to contact them to let them know that you need to do that.
We'll see that next week too?
Yes.
And we want to thank your cameraman.
Oh, Matt Johns. Thank you, Matt for the
Johns.
time.
Yeah. So, he'd be excited when he sees the finished product, I hope.
I know he will.
Yeah. Let's see. So next week we're going to do part 2.
Part 2 next week.
And the reason it's part 2 because you always shot your footage, so
That's
we couldn't do it in 1 hour.
We couldn't do it in 1 hour, so we had to make it into 2.
Yeah, but that's okay too. See, if we hadn't always shot it, you wouldn't have came.
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay, so in easy access, easy parking, easy everything.
Easy access, easy parking to the museum, and they just need a call ahead of time to have someone there to help you walk through, and they specifically take the time to explain everything.
Did he tell you how much the entrance fee was?
No, he did not. entrance fee. Oh, there was no fee.
No fee.
No
So,
fee.
so,
I'm
so it's
sorry.
donation only.
It's donation only.
And let's see, I got a card here somewhere. I'll give you an address. Hang on just a minute, please. And here you are, Granite Falls Historical Museum. Granite Falls, 109 East Union Street. And I'm sure they have a website, except I can't read it. Yeah, www, and then I can't see it. That's a no-brainer, www.gfhistory.org for granitefallshistory.org. So it's a place to go year-round, you say?
Yes, it is.
Is it children-friendly, you know?
It's children-friendly. They have different items. They have different items that are there that would be nice if parents were with you and always watching. Yes. Mostly everything is encased in glass.
So no fingerprints.
No fingerprints,
you don't want to
please.
watch your children.
Yes.
Well, okay. Hey, I'm sort of looking forward to going to next week then, huh?
That's exciting.
Can you hang around?
I'll try. I'll try.
Yeah, they're going to raise the gas another 10 cents by the time you leave here.
Yeah, we gotta be careful.
Gotta be careful. Well, okay then. We'll go to number 2 next week, no?
Sounds good.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Somewhere. Well, I thought that was pretty good, and so we have a couple of minutes. I'm not sure, but I think we do. In case we do, I'm going to find you some music. We play a little music, and then Brandy Shaw can sing you out like always, and we'll see you next week with part number 2. How's that? See you next week.
Kaki vela, onam kitabe, dimwe kaki vela, onam kitabe, kaki vela monsieur, onam kitabe, kaki vela, onam kitabe. Ça qui a fait mon nuit, ces gens-là qui sont habillés, cravate et veste, on sert de souliers, ou peut pas douter, oui, vous la dégainer, adam bratam bam, onam kitabe. Onam kitabe, yo dis-moi c'est Madame Haïti Chatela. Onam kitabe, yo dis-moi c'est Ola Bandi Chatela. Onam kitabe, ay bagado. Onam kitabe, oh la la.
This music is actually Haitian. on the new version of Lilian, Miss Lilian. Cool, huh?
Lilian, Miss Lilian, we'd like to thank you for all the fun. Took us there, and you took us there, and it is just because you really care. Where our journey goes, oh, it begins. It's part of why our planet will extend. And if we do our part and use our heart, we'll fill our mission we've had from the start. Lilian, Miss Lilian, we'd like to thank you for all the fun while you took us here and you took us there. And it is just because you really care. You really care. You
Thank you.